This is where you get your news without the bias, just the facts. Trump calls Putin at the White House summit to arrange talks with Zelensky, here according to Axios. So Trump called Putin on Monday while Ukrainian President Zelensky and 7 European leaders were gathered in the White House. 2 sources familiar with the call tell Axios. So you know that Trump met with Putin, and now Trump has met with Zelensky and European leaders to find another third meeting, a trilateral meeting between Putin, Trump, and Zelensky. Trump said earlier Monday that Putin was expecting a call from him after the talks concluded. Trump said he hoped to quickly arrange a trilateral summit involving both Putin and Zelensky. Trump similarly called Zelensky after a summit with Putin. So he had the meeting with Putin in Alaska immediately after he called Zelensky, and then he called the European leaders. In this case, Trump took a break from his meeting with the Europeans to place the call. I saw that as a big news story. It's kind of weird that it was a big deal that Trump had stopped in the middle of the summit to call Putin. For some reason, that was drama. I don't know why. Trump expressed optimism during his meeting with Zelensky and in the larger meeting with the European leaders about the prospect of a trilateral summit and a peace deal soon thereafter. Trump said on Truth Social that he called Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting between Putin and Zelensky to be followed by yet another summit, this time also including Trump. A lot of the big story right now is the location and timing of the meeting. In terms of the timing, they want to do it as soon as possible, especially Trump. You can see how fast that Trump had a meeting with Putin, and within 2 days, he had another meeting in DC with Zelensky. He's trying to get this over really quickly. In terms of the location, when Trump met in Alaska with Putin, Putin countered and said, hey, why don't you come to Moscow and meet? I don't think anybody really expects him to meet in Moscow, but maybe Putin was hoping for some location inside of Russia. It looks like now Zelensky has offered, or they're doing some kind of offering of, well, what about one of the Western European countries? And then Putin doesn't want to meet in Switzerland or Western European countries. So now they're looking at another kind of third-party source, maybe Turkey or the UAE to meet. So how did the meeting go with Zelensky this past week? The on-camera portions of both Monday's meetings were friendly in tone, particularly compared to Zelensky's disastrous visit in February. The Ukrainian president described it as his best meeting with Trump so far. So I'm sure you remember of a few months ago when Zelensky and Trump met. It was terrible. It was a train wreck inside the Oval Office. You had J.D. Vance, Trump sparring with Zelensky. Just really bad, especially for Ukraine. But it looks like they have made some progress since then. They actually had a meeting set up very similarly inside the Oval Office again this past week with Vance and Trump and Zelensky sitting there. And one of the big questions of it was, what will Zelensky wear? Will he wear a suit? Will he wear his war jacket? Last time there was a big confrontation between him and a reporter in the Oval Office. The reporter said, why aren't you wearing a suit at the White House? Zelensky said, well, this is where I wear all the time. I'm in war. This is our war clothing. I'm not here to wear a suit. My country's in war. We're dying. I'm wearing war clothes. So it was a big deal. The question was, what will he wear? When he showed up, he wore a suit. Trump liked his suit, he said, when he first brought him into the White House. And then in the Oval Office, he allowed the same reporter who asked him before to ask another question. And the reporter said, hey, I love your suit, Zelensky. I love your suit. The European leaders praised Trump's efforts for peace while prodding him to reconsider his decision to stop pushing Putin for a ceasefire and instead jump straight to negotiating a comprehensive deal. Trump also said the U.S. would be involved in providing post-war security guarantees for Ukraine. He didn't rule out sending in U.S. troops, though he said the Europeans would be first line of defense. So to break down the deal, what's going on, what's kind of the resolution to this war, is there's a few different categories of negotiation. One category is security guarantees. If Ukraine and Russia end up with a peace deal, how does Ukraine guarantee that they're going to have the support of other countries if Russia decides to attack again? So right now, Zelensky is trying to get and firm these security guarantees from the United States and Europe. Another big negotiating factor is allegedly Russia has abducted around 19,000 kids from Ukraine and adopted them into Russian families, and Ukraine wants those kids back. Another third big part of the negotiation is the land swap. So Russia has gained about 20% of Ukrainians' land since the war began. I don't think that may not include Crimea that they gained in 2014, but since the last couple of years, they've gained 20% of Ukraine's land, and Ukraine wants some of the territory back. Russia, of course, doesn't want to give all that land back, so they're trying to make land swaps and trying to say, where the boundaries begin and end. The discussion around security guarantees seemed to strike a nerve in Moscow. The foreign ministry said it categorically rejects the possibility of a military contingent with the participation of NATO countries inside Ukraine. This part's a little confusing. In Putin and Trump's meeting last week, it came out that Putin was okay with security guarantees for Ukraine. But then whenever Trump and Zelensky and the European leaders met, they sent out this memo and said, hey, we reject the possibility of military security guarantees with NATO countries. So Russia says we're okay with military security guarantees, but we don't want NATO countries to be involved with it. Okay. Security guarantees for Ukraine and territorial claims by Russia may be two of the thorniest issues if Putin and Zelensky do end up at the negotiating table. Zelensky insists he will not cede land to Russia, but Putin proposed to Trump that Russia would annex 2 territories of Ukraine outright and freeze the battle lines in 2 others. Okay, so Zelensky is saying we're not going to give any land to Russia. Well, they're not going to come to a peace deal if they don't give any land. That's just a fact. Russia's not going to just give them all the land that they have gained over the last 2 years. And Putin is saying, hey, we will not allow security guarantees with NATO countries. Well, that's not going to bring you to a peace deal at all. So maybe these are their first initial offers. And maybe at this third meeting, they'll counter offer and they'll find some compromise or negotiation in the middle. I want to know what you think. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to meet? And do you think there will be a peace deal soon to end this war? Put your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with a friend. I'll see you next time.